everybody, and welcome to the first day of 12 Days of Gracefulness. We started this last year as the year was ending, and it came to me to start something to kind of catapult us into a new year. Now, everything that we start on at this point is not meant for us to hold on to it and start on January 1st. Everything that we talk about is meant from that moment that you hear it for you to take it, run with it, and start processing today. So, for each of these 12 days, we have a different topic that we're going to cover. We have different things that we're going to talk about. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. We're going to joke. We're going to just really talk and be very transparent. Now, y'all know, those who have been with me for a while, I'm Grace. You know, I'm not always super formal, and I kind of allow you to see the process and allow you to see what things are. And it's going to be in that same way as we go along these 12 days of gracefulness. You'll get to see me laughing. You'll get to see me serious. You'll get to see me kind of everything. You'll see some of the bloopers and unedited things that we recorded, because I believe in transparency, and I believe in you realizing that life is not always just easy, and it goes together as it should, but sometimes it's a little messy. So you'll see that in these 12 days. You'll see us laugh about mistakes and all the different things. But it's also that you understand that nothing is perfect. And regardless of what you're dealing with right now, it does not mean that tomorrow is not going to be a better day for you. So I am starting out the 12 days of gracefulness. It seemed only right to start it out with just you and I talking and dealing with something that's very close to my heart. But over these 12 days, you'll be joined, or will be joined, by some of my friends, my family, my loved ones, those I trust, to kind of help guide us along these 12 days as we end out 2022 and we go into 2023. So it won't just be me every day. We're going to have a plethora of people. It'll be very different each time, but when I tell you everyone is relevant and necessary for this period of time in this space, absolutely, please follow along for these 12 days. It will be on Facebook. So at my author Grace Waters page on Facebook, and also on my YouTube channel under Grace Waters, and I'll try to remember to post all those links. But follow along for these 12 days. Make sure that you gather, you garnish, and you just put it all in, so that as we go into a new year, we go into it in a great mental state. Okay, we go into it on top. We go into it exactly where we need to be to start out a new year in a wonderful place. So for today, and I'm not going to be before you terribly long, but bear with me, because I do want to at least get this part of what's on my heart out to you. Today's topic is loving the child within. Um, and when I originally wrote that down, I immediately said, I do not want to do that topic. And that is only because it is a hard thing. Um, and I'll preface it by saying that all of us have a little person within us. We have that child who grew through experiences in different situations. And for many of us, we decided, okay, once we got out of our childhood, we were done with that. But we didn't effectively deal with some of those childhood issues. And so as adults, we're having to deal with those issues, and we're having to deal with those things. And then we're adding on the layers of relationships and friendships and work situations and everything else. But we're having a hard time reconciling the child that we were with the adult that we are. And if you are still in that child situation, like if you're a teenager or anything like that, this will also help, because you'll kind of know as you go forward how to effectively deal with that child, that teenager, that who you are now, so that when you are older, you don't have to deal with some of the side effects of never effectively dealing with the child within. But before we go any further, I did want to start with the affirmation that I wrote, something to kind of help us get in the right frame, in the right mindset to even think about this topic. So if you will, and you'll humor me, please repeat this affirmation after me. So I'll say the words, and I'll pause probably for a second to give you a chance to repeat it, and then we'll continue. And I'm going to go through it twice because I want to make sure you get it, okay? So starting the affirmation, and I wrote it down, so I'm going to be looking off to the side. For those who know, I am pregnant. So pregnancy brain is real, and I wanted to make sure I remembered it correctly for you. So starting off, this is our affirmation for today's topic: loving the child within. I am no longer who I used to be. I am stronger, wiser, better. My history doesn't dictate my present. The hurt from yesterday doesn't control me. What was is not a precursor to what will be. I matter. I am loved, necessary, and relevant. And I won't let fear of rejection, hurt, or abandonment define me. Who I am today is fierce and amazing. I thrive today. I live in today. I am here. So that's the affirmation. I'm going to read through it again because I want you to get it and I want you to take it down in case you haven't. I am no longer who I used to be. I am stronger, wiser, better. My history doesn't dictate my present. The hurt from yesterday doesn't control me. What was is not a precursor to what will be. I matter. I am loved, necessary, and relevant. And I won't let fear of rejection, hurt, or abandonment define me. Who I am today is fierce and amazing. I thrive today. I live in today. I am here. So that is your affirmation as we go into this topic of loving the child within. This particular topic is very dear to me because for a long time I struggled with reconciling the child to the adult that I am today. I'll give a bit of my history for those who don't know. I grew up in foster care from about the age of 6 or 7, yeah, until I aged out of foster care. I was in foster care. So I grew up around strangers. Pretty much, I grew up around people who were not my biological family. And growing up that way, I dealt with a lot of trauma on top of trauma. I dealt with molestation while I was in foster care. I dealt with rape. I dealt with a lot of different things that kind of molded me into being the person I've become today. I remember even before going into foster care that one of my brother's closest friends attempted to rape me prior to me going into foster care. And I carry the trauma of that day with me. It doesn't hurt like it used to. It doesn't feel like it used to, but I remember it. And it shaped my feelings and thoughts about men for a long, long time. So the child that I was dealt with a whole lot of trauma. I never had a typical childhood, happy childhood, two parents, dog, I didn't have that childhood. I grew up very different from that. And as a result, the adult that I grew into is very different from the adult that I thought I would be. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? But I had to learn, especially as an adult, to accept the child that I was, to accept the experiences, to allow the experiences not so much to shape the rest of my life, but to allow these experiences to be something that catapulted me to continue growing and to continue being that all that I need to be for other people. And that's just my experience. Now, Not everyone is able to take those ugly experiences and change them into something good. And I acknowledge that. I'm never going to be one to tell you that you're going to take all this life stuff and it's going to be all good and all great and it's going to be perfect and you're going to be just okay. I'm never going to tell you that. But I will say that we do have to get to a point where we're able to acknowledge and accept our experiences so that they don't become a prison as we go forward. So for years, I almost hid my history because I was ashamed of it. I felt for a long time that I was the reason that my mother gave us up for foster care. I was the reason that my brother's friend decided to try to rape me. I was the reason that the several people tried to molest me. I was the reason. I took that on for me, and I decided that I must have been something like bad. There was something about me that was so wrong and so off that these people decided to do these awful things to me. And so as I grew, I almost started to grow into myself. I became very closed off. I became very standoffish. I became very all about me, because in that way nobody could hurt me. If I was so closed off, nobody could get to my heart. Nobody could reject me anymore. Nobody could abandon me. Nobody could walk away. If I don't allow you in, then that means that I'm safe. hmm But in that, I had created a prison. I had created my own prison, and there were other people outside the wall, but you couldn't get in, which means you couldn't hurt me, and I was just fine. That's at least what I told myself. Um, so for a long, long time, I was that person. But at some point, and I say, I'm like, God, you did that because there were strategic people that began to kind of get into my life. And it almost got to a point where it was impossible to like remain in that prison. Not so much because I couldn't, because I had gotten good at shutting down and being that person. But I saw a glimmer of something different from what I had grown used to over the years. I saw this glimmer of hope. I saw this difference. I saw this possibility of something that I wasn't used to. And a part of me wanted to experience that different. But I was still scared, to branch out, to open up, to allow, because then that opened the door to hurt again. That opened the door to being rejected and abandoned and walked away from. So I still was very hesitant. But slowly, I started allowing that door to open. And so when the prison door burst open, it was a scary thing, because now here I am out raw and vulnerable and open and hoping that these people won't be the same as all the ones who had hurt me before. Because in my mind, men would hurt me. In my mind, women only wanted me as much as they can get money off of me. In my mind, people didn't really care. I was just a statistic in the system. In my mind, I wasn't worthy. I wasn't anything. I wasn't beautiful. I wasn't worthy of people wanting to pay attention to me and actually love me. And that's because that's how I felt about myself. It wasn't even necessarily anymore about what all the things they had done to me, but I had come to believe those things about me. And so that is how I functioned. Like, how could anybody love me? Like, they sat there and they molested me and tried to rape me and all this other stuff because, I was just a body. I wasn't anything. There was nothing about me that I felt was worthy. But I'm going to fast forward because I could go on and on and on because I'm not there anymore. So we want to get to the other part. So at some point, I transitioned over years, and this is not a process that happened immediately. This is not something that just clicked and that is what I was and I was perfect and healed. No, this is a process. For those of us who have dealt with trauma after trauma after trauma, you've dealt with vicarious trauma from other people, you dealt with just all kinds of stuff. It doesn't take just a moment for you to be over it, unless it's a miracle thing, a faith thing, but that's a whole different situation. But I dealt with all of this over the years, and I got to a place where I started to be able to accept who I was as a result of my history. And I began to accept that I was not at fault for the people who hurt me. I was a child. That had nothing to do with me. That was all on them. Them choosing to molest me, that was them. Them choosing to reject me, that was them. Them choosing to abuse me, that was them. And so I learned to accept that part of my experience. And then I learned to start thinking of myself a little differently. Like, no, I didn't look like typical people. No, I didn't have the body type that society said I should have. No, I wasn't necessarily a certain way. I was tomboyish and, I had broad shoulders and, I just had a big head, all these things. But that did not preclude me from being beautiful. And so I began to change how I thought about me. And I began to love almost what my history made me into. Because when I thought about it, years past, I was able to see that all the things that I dealt with in foster care, all the things that I dealt with growing up, actually made me stronger. They actually made me more resilient. They made me able to bounce back and to tackle things in a way that maybe I would not have been able to do if I didn't grow up in the way I did. They made me acknowledge and be grateful for every little thing, every blessing that came along. The experiences made me more empathetic and more willing to embrace others and to make sure that no one else hurts and make sure everybody else is healing and being in a good place. It made me grace. And that's crazy to say today, that those experiences were integral in making me Grace Waters, but they were. And going through it, I didn't understand it. I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. I felt like the world was against me. I contemplated suicide several times, almost went through it. Like, I went through all of that. But when I look at this place today, I understand that all of those experiences, all of those things shaped me into being me today. And I learned to love that child who was still there. There's still an aspect of that child there who's like almost waiting for the other shoe to drop, almost waiting for somebody to show me, that they were going to walk away anyway. There's always like a little aspect of that child. But I've learned to love that child into a place of healthy adulthood. And that's where we are today. And that's where I want to encourage you to get. Many of us are running away from our history. We're running away from what we were, what happened to us, what they did, what they said. We're running away from all of that because we're scared to feel the same way that we did. But to heal, we almost have to pull off the scab, open it up, deal with it, and then keep moving forward so that it can heal properly. So that it doesn't get infected, so that every time we touch it, it doesn't hurt, so that we feel a different way about our history, that we start looking at it from a different perspective. Like, if you did not deal with that, who would you be today? If that did not happen to you, how would you think today? If you did not go through that, what would you be doing today? And just kind of start to process it in a different way. I'm not saying that everything that has happened to you can just with a click of a button be okay. That's not realistic, and I'm never going to say that. But I do want you to understand that you have to first love every part of you. Every single thing, even the things that are ugly and you don't really like and you don't want to share with anybody and you feel like people would look at you differently if you shared. Even those things, you need to learn how to love and accept and acknowledge and then move forward. That's the only way we grow, is continuing to move forward. So as we start, I am the start of our 12 days of gracefulness. As we're preparing for a new year, we're preparing for new things in 2023. I want us to leave 2022 having tackled some of those hard situations, those hard things, those hard thoughts that we sometimes want to ignore. Like, no one wants to go back and delve into their history, especially if it was hurtful. But if you know, and if you're honest with yourself, and you see that what you're dealing with today and how you are today in a negative way is affecting what your future might look like, it's time to start dealing with that child. It's time to start dealing with those historical situations. It's time to forgive. It's time to move forward. It's time. And that starts today. We don't have to wait until New Year comes to say, oh, now we're going to do it all and everything is going to click and everything's going to be great. It's January 1st. We're starting fresh and it's new. Let's start today. Okay, start that hard process today. Start dealing with that child, them situations today. Start loving who you are today. Start acknowledging that all that you are is because of your history and because of what you dealt with, and move forward. That's all we can do. So, day one, let's start with that hard thing, those children within, those things that we don't necessarily even want to talk about. Let's deal with that. Okay. So I want to end this again with the affirmation. After you've heard me say these things, I want to end with the affirmation. And please follow along for the next 12 days as we go through some tough situations, but things that we really need to talk about and chat about as I'm joined by my friends, my family, my loved ones to chat about these things. And just make sure that we go into this next year in a good headspace. Okay, so ending with this affirmation again: I am no longer who I used to be. I am stronger, wiser, better. My history doesn't dictate my present. The hurt from yesterday doesn't control me. What was is not a precursor to what will be. I matter. I am loved, necessary, and relevant. And I won't let fear of rejection, hurt, or abandonment define me. Who I am today is fierce and amazing. I thrive today. I live in today. I am here. Welcome to the 12 Days of Gracefulness journey. I'll see you tomorrow.